Students, we will do the topic perception, features of perception, perception and sensation, and the elements of perception. We know that different individuals tend to see the world in their own ways. Individuals act and react on the basis of their thinking, nature, and philosophies of life, not on the basis of reality. For understanding consumer behavior, one must try to understand consumers' perception. Marketers should understand the whole implication of perception and its related concepts so that they can more readily determine what factors influence consumers to buy. Now, the meaning of perception and its definition. Perception is the identification, organization, and interpretation of sensory information in order to represent and understand the presented information or the environment. According to S.P. Robbins, perception may be defined as the process by which individuals organize and interpret their sensory impressions in order to give meaning to their environment. So, perception is a systematic process in which a stimuli is identified, organized, interpreted to draw the meaningful conclusion. Now, we'll take up the features of perception. Perception is an intellectual process. It is a subjective process and a psychological process. How the perception is an intellectual process? It is intellectual process because it is through which a person selects the data from the environment, organize it to obtain meaningful conclusion. It is psychological process too. The manner in which a person perceives the environment affects his behavior. Thus, people's actions, emotions, thoughts or feelings are triggered by perception of their surroundings. It is subjective process because two different people may perceive the same environment differently based on what particular aspects of the situation they choose to observe, the way they organize the information, and the manner in which they interpret to obtain the understanding of the situation. Now we will take up the difference between perception and sensation. When we talk about sensation, sensation means identification of the stimuli present in an environment. And perception is the complete process starting from the sensation and ends at the interpretation. So, identification, organization and interpretation of the stimuli is what called as perception. Let us take up the difference. Perception is a complex mental process. Sensation is a simple mental process. In perception, person draws meaning out of the sensation. But in sensation, person only becomes aware of the quality of stimulus. Under perception, a person becomes active, and in sensation, the person is comparatively inactive. In perception, the physiological and psychological factors work, but in sensation, only physiological factors work. Under perception, distinct knowledge of stimulus is what called as perception. First impression of this stimulation is sensation. Elements of perception. There are 4 elements of perception: sensation, absolute threshold, differential threshold, and subliminal perception. Sensation, as told you, sensation is the immediate and direct response of sense organ to simple stimuli such as advertisement, brand name. Sensation is through sensory organs: eyes for sight to see, ears for sounds, nose for smelling, tongue is for taste, and skin is to feel the touch. So, if a person notices the noise honking of a horn, then it is the sensation. Sometime in a situation when there is great deal of sensory inputs, the senses become immune of such inputs. For example, people living in busy streets of Mumbai may receive little or no sensation because noisy stimuli such as horns, honking become such sound where a person is immune to it because such sounds are very common at these places. Second one, absolute threshold. It refers to the lowest level at which an individual can experience a sensation. For example, the distance at which a driver can note a specific billboard at highway, then it means he has reached to his absolute threshold level. So it is the point at which a person can detect the difference between something and nothing. The next one is differential threshold. It is also known as just noticeable difference. The minimal difference that can be detected between the two stimuli is called differential threshold. It is called differential threshold, and this phenomena was given by German scientist Ernst Weber. So it is also called as Weber law. Marketer sometimes does not want the difference in stimulus to be noticed by the consumer because such differences are negative, such as reducing the size of the product, increasing the prices, or reducing the quality of the product. So he wants that such differences should not be noticed by the consumer, and such differences are kept below the just noticeable difference level of the consumer. When the marketer makes a positive change in the stimuli as compared to the previous, then he wants the difference to be noticed by the consumers. The positive differences may be improvement in the quality, reducing the prices of the product, and increasing the size of the product. So he wants the differences of these two stimuli to be noticed by the consumers. So he keeps the difference above the just noticeable difference level of the consumers. Another one is subliminal perception. Another example of differential threshold is when we see that two of the lights and we notice the difference that the color of the light, one is shining white and other is yellow, then the difference has been noticed. It is the just noticeable difference. When we notice the differences of different varieties of Lux soap introduced in the form of sizes, colors, fragrances, then it is the just noticeable difference or the differential threshold. Who has noticed the difference between the logo of Ford used in 1976 and the logo which is currently used? If you have noticed the difference, it means that difference has not reached to your differential threshold level. Now the fourth element of perception, subliminal perception. Subliminal perception refers to the level where the stimulus provided to the consumers goes completely unnoticed. When the stimulus level is much below the absolute threshold, it develops no sensation for the stimuli which is present in the environment. It goes completely unnoticed. For example, display of very light colored sari which never catch the attention of a lady who likes to wear darker clothes. Sometimes it is found that people can also perceive stimuli which are below their conscious awareness. Advertisers could expose consumers to subliminal messages that they were not aware of receiving. The messages could persuade the consumers to buy goods or act in a manner beneficial for them. The effectiveness of subliminal advertising was tested in a movie theater in New Jersey in 1957, where the words "eat popcorn and drink Coca-Cola" was flashed on a screen during movie. People who were seeing the movie were quite unaware of the message because the time of exposure was too short to be aware of the message. The results were very astonishing. Results of 6-week test period was that the sales of popcorn increased 58% and those of Coca-Cola increased by 18%. So that's all regarding the features. Thanks.